while their cases are heard.
The agreement is called Remain in Mexico. Endless caravans are not in their interest, and they're not in the United States' interest.
It's our country. It does not belong to people on foreign soil, and you don't get to come here and make demands.
Thousands of protesters have hit the streets in Paris. French President Emmanuel Macron intends to raise the tax on fuel. Already 2 people killed, hundreds injured.
A major storm packing blizzard-like conditions is set to hit northern parts of the country just as millions of people head home.
Airlines are trying to mitigate the inconvenience as we head into the biggest travel day of the holiday weekend.
7th overtime.
I'm looking at
This Sunday morning to Fox.
A little bit, but you know, those decorations we just showed out front, they were putting up lights for a tree. You saw reindeer. You're wearing red. Christmas is upon us today, officially.
I'm still wearing Thanksgiving orange.
He is wearing
I still have leftovers in the fridge.
Well, the leftovers will be gone soon, and we will be fully embracing the Christmas spirit. Good morning.
You got that, Grinch?
I got that, Grinch. I watched a Christmas movie last night with my kids.
Oh, God.
I did. I can't remember the name of it. It came out in 2018. But
that
Santa.
means he slept while
No.
he pretended to watch with the kids.
It's the movie with not Kirk Doug, somebody. Anyway, and he said, the kids are like, Santa, do you say ho, ho, ho? And he says, no, that's actually fake news. Yeah. It was made in 2018, and Santa says fake news. And my 3-year-old turned to me and goes, Dad, Santa just said fake news. So this is a different kind of Christmas movie.
Well, you have to tell me the title of that one.
We'll figure it out.
Let me tell you, we have actual news. We have very serious news, and that is the situation on the border in San Diego, Tijuana. We have, of course, the president has been talking about all of this Thanksgiving weekend, and we have a tweet here that's new. We want to show you right away.
2 from yesterday.
It says, migrants at the southern border will not be allowed into the United States until their claims are individually approved in court. We only will allow those who come into our country legally. Other than that, our very strong policy is catch and detain. No releasing into the U.S. All will stay in Mexico. If for any reason it becomes necessary, we will close our southern border. There is no way that the United States will, after decades of abuse, put up with this costly and dangerous situation anymore. What's significant is there are reports that a deal was struck between this administration and the incoming new Mexican government, the Obrador administration. He'll be inaugurated later this week on this coming Saturday, that they're going to have a new policy.
It's a little bit confusing, though, because they said we struck a deal. The Trump administration said that, and then somebody from the Mexican government said we don't have a deal, but we do have a policy for right now that they remain in Mexico. Either way, this policy is a big win for Donald Trump, because essentially it ends catch and release. And what catch and release means, if you come to our border, you say you have you're claiming asylum, you have a court date. Well, we have a backup. And so essentially we go, well, go away into our country. You can go do your thing, work. A lot of people get work illegally, whatever. And then we said, come back later. Well, a lot of people don't end up coming back. I think only 2% do.
It's called, for now, remain in Mexico. So you can't stay in the country while you're waiting for your asylum claim. You wait in Mexico. The Mexican authorities didn't want to do this, but you look at a businessman who came in to make a deal, and you look at incentives. So he says, President Trump has threatened to close the border completely, all trade completely between these countries. He sent the military down to the border. He said, previously, I will scrap NAFTA. All this pressure has led Mexican leaders, an incoming president, to do what they've never wanted to do. They've always deemed this America's problem, not their problem.
Right.
Now it is their problem, too, and they're saying, okay, we'll give in. We'll hold the folks in Mexico, and then they can come in if their asylum claim is found to be valid, which is a lower percentage than those that try to do so illegally. And this matters, too, Griff, because this morning you've done some reporting.
This is about to get a huge test. This new policy was a solution, ideally, to the catch and release policy.
Right.
But today, I've just been in contact with one of the leaders of Pueblos Sin Fronteras, which is the group organizing this caravan. I was with them all the way in the Guatemala-Mexico border. They've been going all the way to Tijuana, and they tell me, confirming a report today, that they will march to the San Ysidro, San Diego port of entry and try and cross at 9 a.m. this morning. We don't know how many. We don't know what the Mexican officials are doing on that side. This is a fluid situation, but it is certainly going going to be, this is the leaders telling me that they're going to march to that port of entry and try and cross illegally. They're saying that they are going to have signs made that say, open the gates now.
Right.
And they're making both a political statement, and they're going to test the will of both our Border Patrol and the Mexican officials.
This group is called Pueblo Sin Fronteras, which means a people without borders. Interesting, you talked about the Mexican government responding to some of the troops at the border, the threat of shutting down the border. But they're also looking at this and saying maybe this isn't in our own interest to have endless caravans. Here's Michelle Malkin talking about just that.
The agreement is called Remain in Mexico. And obviously, Mexican government officials don't want to publicize it too much diplomatically. But on the other hand, of course, they're getting so much pushback from their own citizens. Every sovereign nation has the right and prerogative to exercise their ability to make sure that they are able to tell who's able to come into their country and not. And the Mexican government officials have said that endless caravans are not in their interest, and they're not in the United States' interest either.
Rachel, that's what you just said. It's a great point. We've heard some independent reports that claim 20,000 will try to march through vehicle lanes at the border because applying for asylum is a waste of time. But I think more significant, Griff, I was there this morning as we're preparing for the show when you got the text from the leader, a guy you've met, a part of the caravan, saying, we're meeting at the stadium at 9 o'clock Pacific time, 6 o'clock Eastern. Or no, excuse me, 12 o'clock Eastern, and we will be marching or walking peacefully to that port of entry. They say they want to do it on a Sunday, some report, not your text, but some reports say because it's a peaceful day, they want to come here illegally, but peacefully, potentially a showdown today at that border.
Here's the point, and this is what you'll watch for today, and that is this group is testing the agreement between the administration and Mexican officials in a new administration.
That's exactly
They're going to test it. They said, okay, we are going to come across peacefully and see what you do. And to your point, that will dictate future caravans coming in the people. Because remember, there are several thousand people in continuing caravans that are still yet on their way to Tijuana.
We've been waiting for that moment. We didn't know if that moment would happen. Today could be that moment when the caravan says we're going to test that very showdown. You've got new authorities that the military has to back up the Border Patrol at that location as well. A lot of eyes will be on the southern border this morning for sure. But also, politics always creep in on everything. I think there's a lot of folks on the other side of the aisle that have differences with the president's approach on the border. Many of them will be attempting to run for president, 20, 30, 40. How many Democrats will run? We don't know. Well, a few tweets caught our eye last night from the senator from Hawaii. His name is Brian Schatz. He took to Twitter and just gave a few thoughts to his friends on the left, and we thought a few of these tweets were interesting. He said, a few thoughts on 2020, since all my friends appear to be running, which is good. First, no one should be trying to figure this all out before the voting starts. And second, he says, we must reject the premise that this fight is between moderates and progressives. We are going to nominate a progressive. There are 5 more in that tweet storm. He went on to say he's not running himself, but he made a very definitive comment, which a lot have alluded to it and suspected. It won't be a moderate that comes out of the Democratic Party. It will be a progressive and likely a far left.
Well, you see, even in the fight between Nancy Pelosi's speakership, the moderates are losing dismally. The progressives are winning. And I've always thought that, a lot of people mock Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I think the moment that she came out and proud as a socialist and caused the other members of the caucus that say they're going to run for, they're not an official caucus, but all the people that are running for president in 2020, all of them basically took their masks off and said, yep, we're there too. We've always known they were socialists. So I think what's really important here, and what this tweet that you pointed out, Pete, points to, is that 2020 is going to be an honest election between socialism and American capitalism. And I think that's a good thing for the American people, to have a real honest choice where people aren't masking what they really are about, but they're being honest. So I really hope they vote for a quote-unquote progressive, which actually means socialist, and that we can actually have a real debate as well.
Look, if the midterms told us anything, and we've been talking about it for months leading up to the midterms on this show, and that is that there are no blue dog Democrats, there are no conservative middle ground. The Democrat Party has moved to the left, and it's not just Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. There's scores of races that went to that area, and even areas of the country that have moved in that direction. So
you're totally right. And Rachel, to your point, no more code talk.
Yeah,
this will not be a code talk election. You talk about capitalism and socialism. If you're tired of the caravan talk on the border, you better stop being tired, because it's going to also be about borders and open borders.
Right.
That is where the left is. That is where their base is.
Globalism.
Globalism will be the definition of the debate, and that's why what the president's doing today on the border, new policies, a showdown, will reverberate and have implications in 2020.
Let us know. Yeah, send us friends at foxnews.com and tell us what you think.
Yeah,
Do you miss
maybe
the
your
Blue Dog
preferred
Democrat?
candidate. Do you miss the blue dog Democrats, as Griff said? What do you think about 2020?
All right, and I'm going to let you know about some headlines right now as we begin a Fox News alert. The United Kingdom is one step closer to leaving the EU, the European Union, as has just approved a Brexit deal. The agreement sets the terms of Britain's March 2019 departure and lays the groundwork for future relations. The deal still has to be approved by the UK Parliament. French President Emmanuel Macron admits his country is facing a moral crisis amid violent protests. Activists are calling for his resignation over rising fuel taxes. Just yesterday, demonstrators started fires in the streets of Paris and hurled rocks at police. At least 20 people were hurt. Macron has condemned the violence. The protest started a week ago. Turning to extreme weather, storm systems could disrupt travel plans for millions of people, including myself. I'm driving back to Wisconsin today. It is one of the busiest travel days of the year. A winter storm off the Rockies is threatening to dump up to a foot of snow in part of the Midwest. And Colorado is already covered in snow, causing several accidents. On the East Coast, heavy rain prompted flood warnings in Baltimore. More rain today could impact travel through several northeastern cities.
Great. Now on to college football. Texas A&M and LSU taking their game to state did beat the Wisconsin Badgers to take Paul Bunyan's axe for the first time in, I think it was 13 or 14 years since 2013.
Good day of football.
Yeah.
All right.
2003. Sorry.
An illegal immigrant now accused of killing a young teacher in a hit-and-run on Thanksgiving, and the crime could have been prevented.
Plus, a showdown brewing in Washington. We break down the big issues that play out this week on Capitol Hill. Plus, remember this iconic Christmas scene?
Well, Congress bracing for another shutdown showdown with just 10 working days left to strike a deal to keep the lights on in Washington. Here to break down the key issues at play is former Trump campaign pollster John McLaughlin of McLaughlin & Associates. John, good morning.
Good morning.
Hope you had a good Thanksgiving. Let's get right to it. We got this showdown coming. Issue number one, border wall.
Right. Well, the great thing about the Democrats are now starting the 2020 presidential race because the campaign that we should have run to keep the House is against Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats, because our post-election poll, she was 31 favorable, 53 unfavorable. So her policies are not popular. And when we asked in the same poll, which is on our website, McLaughlinOnline.com, do you want to have a system of open borders, or do you think illegal immigration should remain illegal? 28 to 63, they said it should remain illegal. They support the Republicans and the presidents on this, and they prefer them 43 to 35. So this is our issue. If the Democrats want to vote on this, let's stand them up. Let's make them vote.
So this is a top issue, but not the only one, because we still have the Mueller investigation. How does that factor?
Well, as you said, I worked in the Trump campaign. After 2 years, there's no evidence, no proof of any collusion, total waste of taxpayer dollars, and they ought to just wrap this thing up. But, the Democrats want to still want to go after this, and it's just absolute fantasy. It's the biggest cover-up going on, because what they should be investigating is the evidence that the Republicans have found in Congress that the Obama administration basically surveilled the Trump campaign, and that's scary.
You predict yes or no it comes to a close soon?
Well, he's got to come out with his report, so let's see.
All right, that's not the only one. Let's keep looking here at the issues. And that is the disaster funding. We've got the wildfires, of course, California, and then we had a couple of hurricanes here recently.
Right. This should not be a point of partisan political contention. When people need help as Americans, the president was out there. He was the president, the American president for the people out there. He said they would get their aid. So this should not be a partisan battle.
All right, moving on to the next one, and that is the sexual harassment. Of course, we live in Me Too.
Right.
How much of a factor or an issue is this?
Well, again, in the scope of a $4 trillion federal budget that this is coming up on, this should not be, it's small dollars, but it should not be a part of political partisan contention. Basically, it should be about we're going to prevent it, and we're going to set procedures in place that this doesn't happen. So they should agree on this.
And I want to get in one last one, and that is, of course, foreign aid. The president has made statements he's going to cut off funding, in particular, to the Central American countries who failed to stop this caravans. Talk to me about this issue. Well,
foreign aid, if the Democrats want to defend giving billions of dollars away to countries that don't help us, like Pakistan, they get over $1 billion. And what do they do for us? They hide terrorists. I mean, that's where bin Laden was hiding out. These Central American countries that are sending us, these illegal immigrants, the American people don't like this. We don't like to waste our money.
Lastly, just to wrap it up, because we're almost out of time, when you add all 5 of those up, and we've got this December 7th deadline, what does it mean?
You've got basically the 2020 presidential race is starting now. The Democrats are teeing up the president. They want to create issues. You know what we should do? We should have strong contrast. The American people agree with President Trump. Let the House vote on it. Let the Senate vote on it.
Well, that's very interesting. And the Democrats have at least 37 candidates seem to be throwing their hat in the ring. John, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You always sum it up so well. All right, coming up next, a Fox News alert. The European Union approves a Brexit deal with Britain. We're live with what's coming up on that. Plus, meet the homeowner who fought the war on Christmas and won. He's live with us to explain, and it's not Clark Glick.
We are back with a Fox News alert. The United Kingdom is one step closer to leaving the EU.
And the European Union just approved a Brexit deal setting the terms of Britain's March 2019 departure.
Ellison Barber is in Washington with the latest. Ellison, good morning.
Good morning to all of you. The European Council President Donald Tusk says the European Union approved a Brexit deal with Britain. In a tweet, Mr. Tusk said that 27 EU leaders who are meeting in Brussels endorsed a withdrawal agreement and political declaration on the future EU-UK relations. This deal lays out the terms of Britain's EU departure set for March 29th. It also lays out a framework for future EU-UK relations. In a letter, British Prime Minister Theresa May said, in future, our laws will be made, interpreted and enforced by our own courts and legislatures. May now has to convince the UK Parliament to buy into this deal, possibly a bit of a difficult task. If the UK Parliament doesn't approve of the deal, the president of the European Commission says this is pretty much it. He said it would be Britain's problem now. He said this is the best possible deal and the EU will not change its fundamental position. We also have this just in from the Associated Press. There already seems to be a bit of trouble with this deal back home. The Democratic Unionist Party in Northern Ireland says that there are no circumstances under which her party would support the current Brexit deal. She says that her party would still support the Prime Minister May, but she says that she wants more talks to come up with a better plan. So already you have some people who support this deal, maybe or support the Brexit, maybe not liking this deal, the EU saying that they're not going to budge on it. So a bit more to see where this goes from here. But for now, they say that there is a deal on Brexit. Pete, Rachel, Griff.
Ellison, thank you very much.
Thanks, Ellison.
Interesting stuff. We're going to have Nigel Farage on the program, one of the guys responsible for Brexit, at 7:15 this morning. We'll get the real deal, because if the EU likes it a lot, maybe the Brexit folks don't love it that much.
We got news. We've got news on the caravan. We've got news on Brexit. Pour another cup of coffee, because you don't want to miss any of this show.
It is. There's a lot going on.
And you don't want to miss this next story either, which is about Christmas. A real-life Clark Griswold took on his homeowners organization and their war on Christmas, and he won.
An Idaho family originally coming under fire for this incredible display of some 200,000 lights.
Wow. A federal jury ruling that the HOA, the Homeowners Association, was hostile towards his celebration of Christian beliefs including from before the family had even closed on the home that they wanted to buy.
So here to explain is that homeowner, Jeremy Morris of Hayden, Ohio. Jeremy, welcome. So tell us just...
Good morning. It's actually Hayden, Idaho.
Idaho. Sorry, that's okay. Our fault.
Our fault. Sorry about that. All right. So tell us about the Homeowners Association. Why do you think they came out against having your display? Do you think they were anti-Christian, or did they just not want people coming from other neighborhoods to see this display all the time during the Christmas season?
You know, the HOA made their intentions very clear. First, what they did is they sent my family a certified letter. And in that letter, I will quote from it. They said, "And finally, I'm hesitant to bring up the fact that some of our residents are non-Christians." In another draft, they actually used the word avowed atheists. And, quote, "we can't even imagine the problems that would bring up," end quote.
Jeremy, let me just put that on the screen. That letter you've got, I'm sorry to interrupt, just real quick so we can show that letter. Here is what you're referring to, the letter to you. It says, "I am somewhat hesitant in bringing up the fact that some of our residents are non-Christians or of another faith, and I don't even want to think of the problems that could bring up." That's what you're referring to, correct?
Yeah, what's that illusion? I don't even think of the problems that could bring up.
Right, exactly. And, you know, one of the things that we thought was, if you can imagine the Fair Housing Act, which protects has 7 protected categories, and each of those categories really receives the same level of protection. So if you can imagine, for example, if the exact same phrase said, you know, that we're hesitant to bring up the fact that, you know, there's white people in our neighborhood, or you know, fill in the blank, whatever
right.
group. You can imagine that would be obviously very, for certain, illegal. But they went one step further. What they actually did is they then contacted the seller, because of course this was before we purchased the home, and they basically told the seller, and the seller testified before a federal court that they, quote, didn't want our beliefs pressed on others in the neighborhood. So anyone who doubts that the war on Christmas, or as I like to call it, the war on Christians, is real in this country, they could just look to my case for proof of that.
Absolutely. You've said that this process has been a nightmare for your family. So fighting and winning takes money, it takes time, it takes pressure. Your neighbors having adamant opinions. How did you stick to your principle when so many people were probably saying, "Hey, just back down"?
You know, you're exactly right. There were a lot of people that said that. And, you know, I'll confess that my wife and I even prayed about this. I happen to be an attorney. And even being an attorney, you know, that was a question. Do we really want to, you know, spend the time and huge amount of resources to do this? And what we concluded was that's exactly the reason we have to do this. Because if I, in the position that I'm in, with the legal means to do something,
HOA, but have not yet received a response. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Have a great Christmas. Thank you very much.
Christmas.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to all of you.
You've earned your win. And he's so right. No, if you're in that position and you don't throw down, then the person who isn't will get run over, and pretty soon you lose your ability to have religious freedom in this country.
I love that he said it's not the war on Christmas, it's the war on Christians.
I think it's very true. All right, well, moving on. Thousands of migrants lining up in Mexico in hopes of crossing into the U.S. illegally. And the CBP acting deputy commissioner, that's the Border Patrol, says this caravan is unlike any other he's ever seen. He joins us on that next. Welcome back. Well, a lot going on the southern border, so we're going to stay on that topic, and we're going to bring in Robert Perez. He's acting Deputy Commissioner, U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Sir, thank you very much for joining us. Perfect guest for this morning. So the president, as we talked about earlier in the show, tweeting out a new tentative deal possibly with the incoming Mexican government, where asylum seekers will remain in Mexico while waiting for their asylum claims. This comes as he's threatened to completely shut down the southern border as a negotiating tactic or a tool to use if necessary. What is the latest as far as what you're seeing and how those potential policy changes are affecting the situation on the border, sir?
Well, thanks for having me, Pete. Well, look, it goes without saying our counterparts in Mexico and the nation of Mexico, of course, has been a terrific and very critically important partner of ours in all things border security for a long time. As we here in Customs and Border Protection, Department of Homeland Security, on the U.S. side, continue to explore every legal option we have, every tool in our toolbox, to deal with the ongoing migration crises that we've been dealing with now for the better part of several years. Our collaboration and our work with Mexico is a critical part of that. And so we're going to continue to explore different ways that we can employ the current legal construct that we have available to us and work with our counterparts in Mexico to not only do what's in the best interest of the safety and security of the United States, but certainly of the citizens of Mexico as well and the migrants themselves. Their safety and security is ever present on our mind as well.
Deputy Commissioner, I have been in contact with Pueblos Sin Fronteras, the organizers of the caravan over there, and they confirm reports for me that they are intending to march peacefully. We don't know how many, but a significant number of the caravan will march peacefully to the port of entry at San Ysidro today in hopes to cross. How will you handle this?
Well, Griff, we have been preparing for several weeks now, ever since these very large caravans formed through the Northern Triangle and marched through the state of the country of Mexico. And so, as you are probably aware already, we have deployed several hundred additional CBP officers, Border Patrol agents, and now we have our partners of the Department of Defense as well with us there along the border and at the port of entry in San Ysidro. And so we expect that it will be a peaceful demonstration, but nevertheless we will remain prepared for any contingency that might present itself. I think it's important for me to point out for your viewers and for yourselves that this caravan and this phenomenon and how it's manifested itself is absolutely unique to anything that we had seen in the past. The mere size of the group of this caravan, now totaling over 6,000 that have arrived in Tijuana, another 2,000 over Mexicali, making their way slowly toward Tijuana, with a couple other several thousand in Mexico making their way up to the northern border of Mexico along the U.S. border. And the violence that has been perpetuated across two international borders and throughout the country of Mexico is something that we have taken particular note of and that we are absolutely prepared to deal with if it were to occur.
So I understand that the American government has informants in the caravan to help us gain some intelligence or information about who they are and what's going to happen. Has that helped you get an idea of what to expect at the border? How many are there? How many do you expect to see when they say they're basically going to come protest? They're going to say, open these gates. What are you expecting to happen?
Well, Rachel, we continue to use every tool available to us to get as accurate information, particularly, again, working with our Mexican counterparts to know exactly what it is that the migrants are currently planning in and around Tijuana. We will be prepared for any contingency. There is a legal means to present yourself at the border, at the ports of entry, and that is what we expect people to do.
Sure.
Anything else that might manifest itself, we'll be prepared to deal with.
Commissioner, we're just out of time here, but very quickly, do you see this as a first test to what will be more caravans?
Well, there's already several others, as you know, Griff, making their way up. I think it's really important that we find solutions to the ongoing immigration crisis and immigration challenges that we're facing at the border here in the United States, not only, again, for the benefit of our citizens, but for those in Mexico as well, and the Northern Triangle countries of where most of these folks are emanating from.
Deputy Commissioner Perez, thank you very much.
Thank
it's going to
you.
be a busy day. Our best to your men and women out there on the front lines.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, folks.
Thank you. All right, we're going to turn to your headlines now. A suspected illegal immigrant charged in a deadly hit-and-run Thanksgiving morning was out of Velasquez on assault charges last year. He is Texas. Authorities say he hit and killed a 6th grade teacher in El Paso. A Florida student students started a petition to give a classmate killed in the Parkland school shooting the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Junior ROTC cadet Peter Wang held the door to let others escape the mass shooting. He was one of 17 people killed in the attack. The petition already has nearly 5,000 signatures, encouraging the president to give him the award. Wow, I'd like to add my name to that list. The First family is getting ready for Christmas. First Lady Melania Trump is giving us a sneak peek of holiday decorations inside the White House. She tweeted these pictures thanking West Wing volunteers for all of their hard work. The President and First Lady will see it all tonight when they return home from Thanksgiving in Florida. And those are your headlines.
Good stuff.
Good stuff, Rick. Tell me what I'm going to be facing as I drive back to Wisconsin.
Am I going to get home to D.C.?
D.C., yes. Wisconsin, that's going to be iffy. It's also a farther distance, so she's got, that longer distance potentially have problems. And yes, you're going to have some. Sorry. That's not about your problems. That's about my throat. All right. Here's the temps going on. This right here is where our problem zone is. We also have a lot of problems down across the southeast for fog. But take a look at this. Blizzard warnings in effect here right across parts of Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, and Missouri. If you're traveling along I-70, you're going to watch for some big problems. Later tonight, snow moves in towards Chicago. We're going to see some spots here, probably in the 12 to 15 inches of snow. And because it's going to be blowing snow, you're going to see it drifting and causing big problems here across the road. So if you're trying to get home right now, there's going to be some problems. This morning, be very careful down across the southeast, including Florida. Lots of fog out there. So if you're heading out on the roads, there's problems. And look at that. We had a big storm here across the northeast. Now it's exiting parts of New England this morning. There you go. Good luck, Rachel.
Thank you, Rick. Yes.
Good luck, Rachel.
She's got her own caravan going to Wisconsin.
I know, I do have a caravan.
Oh, gosh. Thanks. All right, this isn't a reason for Bill and Hillary to celebrate. Donations to the Clinton Foundation taking a huge dive. The reason? Our next guest has an interesting take.
Plus, Kurt the Cyber Guy is here to break down the best deals for the upcoming Cyber Monday. If any bar, it's this guy.
I prefer Cyber Monday to Black Friday.
All right, everybody, get ready.
Good Sunday morning to you. Some quick headlines for you. Animal rights group PETA is asking a town named Wool to change its name to Vegan Wool. City council members in the English Village are calling the request ridiculous, but we'll discuss it next month. PETA is offering every household in Wool a vegan-friendly blanket if they agree to the change. That is real news. In this, a family dog missing for more than a year found more than 1,000 miles from home. The pup from New York named Sinatra turned up in a Florida neighborhood. It's unclear how the blue-eyed husky ended up so far from home. Sinatra is expected to be reunited with his owners today. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. Well done, Sinatra. Pete, over to you.
Thanks, Griff. All right. Well, donations to the Clinton Foundation taking a huge dive.
Now, while Hillary Clinton was still in the running for the White House, contribution and grants were pouring in, raking in some $62 million. But after she lost the election, donations dropped by about 40% to just over $26 million.
That's right. Here to react, former presidential writer and founder and CEO of American Majority, Ned Ryan. Ned, thanks for being here this morning. So,
absolutely.
It was 62. Now you swap the numbers and it's 26. Does that surprise you?
No, not at all, Pete. In fact, when she was Secretary of State, Clinton Foundation actually averaged about $250 million, $254 million. And I think it's pretty, the biggest question about the Clinton Foundation is not whether it was a vehicle for pay-to-play and influence peddling. I think it's patently obvious to anybody with a little common sense and objectivity that it was. And you look at those numbers and you go, 90% drop from when she was Secretary of State till now, $254 million to $26 million. It's clear that those previous donors have decided if there's no game to play, why pay? And I think the biggest question about the Clinton Foundation is, what are we going to do about it? Do we actually believe in something? And do we believe in the rule of law? Do we believe that everybody stands equal before it and that nobody's too big to fail? Or are we going to accept, Pete, that there might actually be a bifurcated legal system in which, for some, the law is just a series of suggestions? Because I'm going to tell you this, a lot of us, myself included, believe that the Clinton Foundation is a huge charity fraud, and people go to jail for charity fraud. Recent examples, former Republican Congressman Steve Stockman got 10 years for charity fraud, and about a year ago, former Democratic Congresswoman Corrine Brown got 5 years for charity fraud.
So let's talk a little bit about the emails that were deleted, because it's interesting. Hillary was determined to delete them. She took hammers to them, bleach bits. Do you think that there is something about the foundation that she was trying to cover up in the emails?
Oh, absolutely. I think the Clinton Foundation and this illegal private email server are absolutely intertwined. And there was a reason that she wanted to do that. There's a reason that there's 30,000 missing emails, is because I believe that she was using her position as a Secretary of State for personal gain. And we've got to be blunt about this, Pete. Not only using it for personal gain, she was putting her family's interest, her personal interest before the country's interest, the interest of the taxpayer, and quite frankly, her interest before national security.
But is this finally catching up with them? I'm sorry, Peter.
No, go ahead.
I just want to know if this is finally going to catch up with them. Is the DOJ doing anything?
Well, I certainly hope so. I know there are going to be hearings in the House in December about this, trying to get to the bottom of it. There has to be some transparency. There has to be accountability, because if we don't actually deal with this, guys, if we don't say you cannot do this, we are setting the tone for the future. And if we let public servants get away with this, I think the rule of law becomes a complete and total farce.
It's a great point. It was all about access. So many foreign donations, Saudi
100%.
Arabia, Kuwait. I mean, it was all about that. When all the access and power goes away, so does the dollars. Ned Ryan, thank you very much for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Got it. All right, what do we have coming up?
We have Nigel Farage, Michelle Malkin, and Mike Huckabee all here live coming up.
Plus, Kurt the Cyber Guy here to break down the best deals for Cyber Monday. Coming up next.
There's choosing to shop online rather than the mall. Online sales rising more than 23% as sales fell 4 to 7% in actual brick and mortar stores.
Kurt the Cyber Guy joins us now to react. I agree. I'd rather do it online in my house.
And I think we saw that. We saw crowded malls. We still see crowded malls, but we don't see the amount of money being spent out at brick and mortar, because it's just become more and more advantageous, convenient to use the online world.
Brawls. No brawls.
Free shipping, all that stuff.
No brawls. But those doorbuster things, I think we also have worn out on those. A lot of the merchandise that's made for that isn't even available normally. It's kind of crappy stuff that's made just for the doorbusters, and you don't really want it for the quality.
So what are the cyber deals that we need to look for?
Let's talk about what Cyber Monday, and so we had this thing called Black Friday Blur, right? So Black Friday started. For the first time, they're like stretching this out longer and longer and longer. Cyber Monday is now going to be the last day of the big holiday sale coming up tomorrow. And here's something that's already sold out at Walmart and Target. It is Sony's PlayStation VR with Creed Rise to Glory bundle. Bundles are what you're seeing deals on. This is $100 off from their $349.99 price down to $249.99.
This is full on VR.
Yeah, full on VR. This is a really good, amazing game. You see Creed playing inside of that monitor.
Put that on, I'll hit you like Creed.
You hit me like Creed.
We found it at Best Buy, GameStop's got it, Amazon's got it, and many of these retailers are saying limit one per customer. So it's a deal, and it's something that people want. Now we jump to the ViewSonic gaming monitor right here. This is the XG2402. That's what they call it. I call it incredible for any gamer. So the difference, what's a gaming monitor? A gaming monitor is totally different from a TV or a computer monitor in that it can handle the action. It can handle the graphics. It's beautiful. And then it articulates all around. You can push this up and down if I were in front of it.
Oh, I see.
And then also, you can spin it. But it matches. It's perfect for any gamer to really immerse themselves inside of their game.
This is my favorite thing you have.
What do we got over here?
Explain this, because this is incredible.
But wait, let me tell you. So this is normally $269.99, and it is we found it at Office Depot and Best Buy for $219.99.
Okay, nice.
All right. And say something inside. Press the center button, and press and hold the center button, and say something on the relay walkie-talkie.
Hello, I'm gonna beat up Pete.
Hello, I'm gonna beat up Pete.
Wow, say they work.
Hello,
so these go anywhere. They have LTE technology
These are
inside of
great
it.
for
They
kids,
are.
but it also has a translator thing, so I can say something in Spanish and it'll translate it into English, which, by the way, for kids who are for studying, I mean, my kids are always having to translate things. Okay, go ahead.
Feliz Navidad.
No, yours isn't set to translate.
You have to set it to translate.
But I think yours might be on translate. So let's try this.
Okay.
All right.
Feliz Navidad.
Feliz Navidad.
I don't think it's on translate.
I'm going to help it out.
I saw it
Get it
work
to
ahead of
translate.
time. I saw
But
it
these
work.
right now, Oh, wait, it just did it. So, by the way, so these are normally $99, and they're great for kids that you're trying to track down kids in the neighborhood, your own kids. Parents can use an app. Amusement park. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Normally $99. They're down to $49, and then tomorrow, 15% off of that. So 15% off of $49.
We're almost out of time, but I recognize this one. This is the Apple Watch. You got a deal on it?
Yes, so Apple Watch 3, a lot of Apple products are $50, $100 to $200 off. From watches to iPads to Macs. This is a time that for the very first time, Apple has stretched their sale also from one day to a whole bunch longer.